Hello everyone. Today I will be sharing you with my experience regarding how I wrote my Group 1 mains paper regarding economy. Okay, and this will be it will not be a conventional session where I will be giving an answer. I will be just sharing how I wrote my answers. Okay, irrespective of whether they are right or wrong. So whatever I have experienced, my emotions while writing the answer, I will be telling that. So if you see here, let me start with section 1 here. Okay, so as far as section 1 is concerned, I had in the first question I had two questions to choose from. One is discuss the impact of new age reforms of the Indian economy in the last 8 years. Examine the scope of growth potential for India in this decade. See, this is a very open-ended question. Okay, if I start writing this, I might take more than 15 to 18 minutes to complete this answer, because first I need to define what is new age reforms. Okay, and I have to define its scope, what is new age reforms. Okay, I have to talk about economical, I have to talk about political, I have to talk about technological, I have to talk about social, education, health, okay, various other aspects, and in the last 8 years. So it's very broad question, so I immediately thought I will not choose this question. Okay, then I came up with the option of, is the exchange rate of the Indian rupee fully determined by the market? Explain the effects of rupee depreciation on the Indian economy. Discuss the role of RBI in defending the falling rupee. See, this is a 10 marker question. So roughly I can say 3. So there are 3 subparts here. Roughly I can assume for each question it might carry 3.33 marks. Okay, first part is the exchange rate of India rupee fully determined by the market. So in the initially this is the first question I wrote, so I was very enthusiastic, so I immediately started writing. Exchange rate refers to, I wrote the definition what exchange rate means. Exchange rate refers to what 1 rupee, what currency of domestic currency, one unit shall be used to buy universally accepted currencies, like it can be dollar, there you can know what is the exchange rate. I wrote what are the examples we follow near and read for determining the exchange rate, which is nominal effective exchange rate and real effective exchange rate. Then I immediately started writing whether exchange rate of Indian rupee is fully determined. Here you have to imagine fully determined by the market. Okay, whether exchange rate, we know that exchange rate is not fully determined by the market, so we have to start writing the answer by saying that India follows free floating exchange rate system. Okay, so in this what happens, we will be having, whenever the demand for Indian rupee increases, the value of Indian rupee goes up. Secondly, when the demand for Indian rupee goes down, the value of Indian rupee goes down. As simple as that. Now, however, despite India following free floating exchange rate system, but in some exceptional situations, Reserve Bank of India tries to intervene in the exchange rate market. So I wrote this point. Later I said that RBI, through its open market operations, okay, it tries to decrease the supply of Indian rupee so as to artificially increase the demand for Indian rupee, or it can put more rupee into the market by purchasing dollars with respect to Indian rupee. So in these situations, sometimes RBI tries to manipulate or change the exchange rate in order to combat inflation, exports, current account deficit, FDI, bond market for India. So these are the simple things we have to write. Now the second part of the question was explain the efforts of rupee depreciation on the Indian economy. So simply you don't have time, so you have to just put the side heading rupee depreciation and its effect. There will be two type of effects. See, when rupee appreciates, what happened? When rupee depreciates, what happened? See, whenever the value of rupee depreciates, what happens? That means you require more rupees to purchase a unit of dollar. That means your imports gonna get costlier. As a result, your fuel, the gold, the natural gas, fertilizers, electronic goods becomes costlier. Similarly, what are the other effects of rupee depreciation? Rupee depreciation की वजह से क्या होता? The exports, what it will have an impact on exports. How it will have an impact on exports? Since rupee is cheaper, as a result, people or the market for Indian goods increases, and also the NRIs will get more dividends if they invest the amount in India compared to their domestic country. Similarly, the bond market also is affected. More value for bond markets. And what about the external borrowings? Since your rupee depreciates, the cost of servicing the debt also increased. Do you get the point? So here you can add 5 points where you talk about how the depreciation of the rupee is going to impact the Indian economy. What about the third part of the question? It says about discuss the role of RBI in defending the falling rupee. You have the same things. So you can talk about open market operations. Second thing, you can increase FDIs. Third, you have to attract demand. You have to create demand for Indian rupees, right? So exports needs to be increased. Fourth, since RBI is the manager of public debt in India, it can push for external commercial borrowings. So this is one way by how RBI can defend the falling rupee. Also, RBI through its monetary policy, RBI through its monetary policy, what happens? It can use SLR, CRR, bank rate. It can use SLR, CRR, bank rate, or it can use G-Sex market and all those things, okay, to absorb the rupee to so as to appreciate the value of Indian rupee. So since it was my first question, I almost took 15 minutes to answer it. So that was a big no. So time was already ticking here. So time was already 10:15 for me. So what about the second question? So there were two important, very beautiful questions they asked. Okay. First is, what is meant by monetary policy transmission? Explain the issues experienced during process of monetary policy and suggest steps to overcome these issues. So again this question has three parts. One is, what is monetary policy transmission? Define. Second question is, explain the issues experienced by the monetary policy. Third is, way forward or steps to recover. So since it was there was a small article regarding monetary policy transmission in economic survey, okay, APPSC might have picked up this topic from there. I exactly don't know what is the reason why APPSC chose this thing. So what is monetary policy transmission? Monetary policy, as far as monetary policy is concerned, okay, RBI is the premier agency in managing India's internal debt and maintenance of monetary policy. This is a simple definition you can use. Second, but however, due to various reasons, the monetary policy implementation and monetary policy formulation, there is a huge gap between policy formulation, policy implementation and policy impact. Okay, due to this lag between the policy implementation and policy impact, this is called known as monetary policy transmission gap. So another thing is monetary policy transmission. So to whom this monetary policy impact must be transmitted? It must be transmitted to banks, it must be transmitted to fiscal policy, it must be transmitted to the retail consumers or retailers, or it must be transmitted to the financial markets and other institutions. As simple as that. So what are the tools that monetary policy, that Reserve Bank of India use to conduct monetary policy? They use open market operations, they use SLR, they use CRR, and they use other qualitative tools like credit rationing, etc. These are the tools. So but however, due to what are the issues that are going to arise due to this monetary policy? Main issues that are experienced during the process of monetary policy. See, the basic issue is the synchronization or congruency between fiscal policy and monetary policy is key. Second thing is, there is a monetary policy transmission gap. Okay, that is one thing that is going to occur. And also other thing what I wrote in the exam is I wrote this thing, one monetary policy gap, and I also wrote about synchronization. ఇంకోటి ఏదో రాశాను అబ్బా మానిటరీ పాలసీకి, పిచ్చితో లిఖాల్సిన. ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ ద ఇష్యూస్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ ఇస్ వన్ థింగ్ డ్యూరింగ్ ద ప్రాసెస్ ఆఫ్ మానిటరీ పాలసీ. అండ్ ఐ ఆల్సో రోట్ like sometimes what happens is that the Reserve Bank announces CRR, SLR, but in order for the banks to fully operate on the basis of these monetary policy takes minimum of 4 to 5 months. And also the other main impact of this major issue is that the monetary policy can become outdated. That is one thing. And also the other thing is, what does the suggest some steps to overcome this issue? Again, this was I just wrote. So we need to have a monetary policy committee. We need to have a strong congruency between fiscal policy and monetary policy. And also banks can use MCLR, marginal credit lending rate, where the lending rates are linked to monetary policy. So whenever there is a change in monetary policy, the effects of this monetary policy are immediately impacted in the bank deposit rates. As a result, what happened, we can address the issue of monetary policy lag. And also other major issue with monetary policy is that Reserve Bank performs dual function, public debt management and monetary policy. So sometimes there is conflict of interest in RBI in balancing both inflation and public debt. So in order to solve this thing, government announced fiscal council to manage public debt and keep Reserve Bank of India independent of public debt functions. So this is what I wrote. I don't know how many marks. See, some people might have chosen this question, right? They might have chosen what is the different fiscal policy tools in India. Can customs and excise duties be used as fiscal policy tools in order to increase the revenue and control inflation? See, there are too many subtopics here. First, you have to talk about fiscal policy tools. Okay, basically you have to start with introduction. What is fiscal policy? Fiscal policy refers to management of government expenses and revenue side. So basically any policy that deals with management of public expenses and revenue is fiscal policy. So how government is going to manage its revenue part, its expenditure, through different tools. Expenditure, it manages through budget. Revenue, it manages through tax systems. Okay, charges, debt and other things. As far as expenditure is concerned, you have budget. Okay, you have fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, and also investment expenditure. So these are the various tools that fiscal policy uses. Other thing is, can customs duty, again this is a very specific subpart. You need to know what custom duty is, excise duty is, in order to say whether it's a flexible fiscal policy or not. Second, you have to talk whether is it possible to increase revenue and control inflation using these things. So the immediate question is, we have to talk about what is fiscal policy, what are various fiscal policy tools. Can excise duty and customs duty can act as a flexible fiscal policy tools in order to increase tax revenue and control inflation is another craziest thing. So that's why I didn't choose this question, because already I took extra 5 minutes for writing 1A question. Now if I start writing this 2B, it's going to take a lot of time. So even though I know very little things about 2A, so I thought 2A was the right option to write. So I just wrote what is monetary policy transmission and started writing whatever the demand of the question was. Fifth question: explain the importance of budgetary policy in reallocation of resources. Briefly discuss allocation of the budgetary resources in social services sector with respect to AP budget 2023-24. This question is easy for those people who have memorized some important allocations with respect to social service sector in AP budget. Okay, since I have as far as my way of approach was that I didn't have any kind of numbers regarding the budgetary allocations. Unfortunately, I couldn't revise them, so I was very underconfident of starting this question because of this. But if you have good facts, this is the most easiest question to score the maximum marks. Why? Because he just asked us to explain the importance of budgetary allocation, budgetary policy, which is very easy question. But due to lack of facts, I had to choose 5B. See here, what is meant by gender budgeting and child budgeting? Does Andhra Pradesh follow gender budgeting and child budgeting? Evaluate. The other question was, what is gender budgeting and child budgeting? Does Andhra Pradesh follow gender budgeting and child budgeting? Evaluate. Okay. So there are 3 questions here. One is, what is gender budgeting and child budgeting? Roughly around 3 marks. Does Andhra Pradesh follow gender budgeting and child budgeting? And evaluate. Okay, these are the most important thing. Keywords here. Okay, we can start writing about definitions with respect to gender budgeting and child budgeting. So what is the definition of gender budgeting? So what I wrote is, I just started with what is gender budgeting. What I did is I gave a brief definition. See, fiscal policy is key to national development. Gender budgeting and child budgeting gave importance to sustainable development goals and inclusive budgeting. So I gave this brief definition and then just started writing. Just started what is gender budgeting. Okay, then I immediately wrote gender budgeting refers to evaluation, allocation and evaluation of budgetary allocations through gender lens, which means evaluating the allocations of resources towards gender equality or women development. So simple definition. Then you can also write what is child budgeting. So child budgeting refers to simple thing, finally same thing, allocation and evaluation of budgetary resources for the upliftment of children. Okay, these are the basic things. And yes, Andhra Pradesh do follow gender budgeting and child budgeting in budgetary allocations. So I just wrote these few points and then started writing. As far as outcome, like evaluate, I just wrote what are the positives. I just wrote gender sensitivity in budgetary allocations Okay, and also I talked about how child development and various schemes, allocations. So I had very less points. సో మ్యాక్సిమం నేను ఈ ఫోర్ ఆర్ 5 పాయింట్స్ రాసేసి పేపర్ ఈ ఈ ఆన్సర్ని ముగించాను. బట్ ఎవరికైతే ఈ 5A క్వశ్చన్లో ఈ రిసోర్స్ అలొకేషన్ క్లారిటీగా తెలిసి ఉంటుందో కంపారిటివ్లీ ఈ క్వశ్చన్ అనేది ఈజీగా సాల్వ్ చేసి ఉండొచ్చు. బట్ సమ్హౌ నా బ్యాడ్ లక్ ఏంటంటే ఆ బడ్జెటరీ అలొకేషన్స్ నేను కరెక్ట్గా చూసుకోలేదు, దానివల్ల నాకు చాలా ప్రాబ్లం అయింది. And other is, what is meant by goods service tax? Explain the steps taken by Indian government to facilitate trade and ease of doing business. So ఈ క్వశ్చన్ అటెంప్ట్ చేశాను నేను. I just gave what is GST. So GST refers to goods services tax, okay, which tries to subsume various taxes of state and center into one single goods and services tax. Second, it's a destination based tax system. Every annually per month on an average 1.5 lakh crore rupees is being collected. Then I wrote, explain the steps taken by government to facilitate trade and ease of doing business. I immediately started GSTN network, okay, in order to create regulatory proceedings, ease of regulatory proceedings, and e-way bill system. Next, composition scheme to ensure maximum penetration of GST. Next, various predictability in taxation system, because you have only 4 tax slabs, right? Like you will be having what is this? You will be having 5%, 12%, 18% and 28% taxations. So these are the 5 things that you will be having. So 0, 5, 12 and 18% taxation in goods and services tax. And what about other few things, like we will be having simplified procedures in tax compliance, okay, that is an advantage with respect to GST. Unlike previously we in order to file taxation there are multiple tax laws which has to be complied at the state and central level, so that became a very difficult task. And other thing you can also write about ski, it's not only that GST, even though it has subsumed various taxes, but somehow various issues are still there, that is with respect to GST council, voting rights, and it can also speak about that various taxes have not yet been subsumed under GST. For example, tobacco application, petroleum goods and all those things. And for those people who as far as 15th Finance Commission, it was more specific question. It was even more specific with respect to fiscal consolidation. Second, it talks about how much progress it has been made and fiscal consolidation in India. So it has too many subparts which I have very less matter, so I had to choose GST services. Next, water external aided projects and Andhra Pradesh irrigation and agriculture transformation. So I have no idea, so I skipped it. So I just wrote impact of bifurcation. I wrote on the basis of sectoral changes and resource gap. Okay, sectoral changes and resource gap. As far as sectoral change is concerned, agriculture, industry, service sector. As far as resource gap is concerned, Resource gap, you have to speak about, you have to write about resource gap refers to fiscal deficit and all those things, revenue deficit and public debt, and also major revenue sources of taxation that India has lost, and also global investor summit showcase India's Andhra Pradesh abundance potential in respect of attracting investment. We can speak about these things. So I completely finished first five questions like roughly around 11:10. Around 11:10 a.m. I finished my first 5 questions, which was very late. So coming to the next section, 6A, they asked about describe the scope of differentiated banking policy with respect to financial inclusion in India and analyze the potential of digital banking in improving financial inclusion in India. So this is a very specific question related to differentiated banking policy. So post 2014, okay, there have been steps taken in terms of differentiated banking policy. For example, you have small finance bank, you have payments bank, you have wide banks, you have NBFCs, various other institutions which are providing banking policy other than the regular commercial banks or foreign banks or scheduled banks. So we have to write about these things, and other thing is we need to analyze the potential of digital banking in improving financial inclusion. So as far as potential is concerned, you have to speak about last mile connectivity, okay, and also you can speak about remittances, you can speak about forex, you can speak about you can speak about affordability, you can speak about 24/7 banking solutions, you can speak about de-burdening of regular banks, you can speak of easy access to credit. So various ways in which digital banking can improve financial inclusion. But as in the examination, I due to exam pressure, I didn't want to innovate any solutions. Rather, I choose to write this question: explain the challenges faced by the women entrepreneurs in India and discuss the schemes and initiatives taken by Indian government with respect to facilitating entrepreneurship in India. So this question I attempted around 12:55 p.m. roughly at the fag end of the examination. Okay, considerably I can say it's a bad choice. If I would have chosen the 6A question, maybe I would have got more marks, but somehow due to my unfortunate, I chose 6B. So choosing 6B, once again was a disaster. If you see here, explain the challenges faced by women entrepreneurs in India. So immediately I wrote what are the challenges faced by women entrepreneurs. So first, with respect to finance, with respect to awareness, with respect to investment, with respect to society support, okay, and with respect to education. So these are the challenges faced by women entrepreneurs in India: financial, society, education, awareness issues. These are the different challenges faced by women entrepreneurs in India. So I immediately wrote this thing, like in the last 2 minutes I had 2 minutes of time to complete this part. So discuss the schemes and initiatives taken by Indian government. So as I know that I didn't have any choice, I just mentioned the schemes. So I just wrote ki Spurti scheme, as per, okay, Make in India, Startup India, Mudra loans, okay, and also I wrote about women SHGs, various other programs which promote women entrepreneurship in India. I can definitely watch. I will only get 3 marks. So this was such question where I'm going to get max 3 marks. So worst performance of this paper from my side for wrongly choosing the question. If I would have chosen differential banking policy, I think I would have written more, I would have got more marks, but unfortunate that I had chosen this. Still I regret of choosing that question. So next 7A question, discuss the types and sources of agriculture credit in India and explain the initiatives taken by Indian government in order to improve agriculture credit. Okay, so what you need to do is, as far as agriculture credit in India, you have to write I wrote a simple basic introduction that timely agriculture credit is key for doubling farmers' income, productivity and production. Okay, so and then you can also write about what are the types of agriculture credit. So I just put the heading types of agriculture credit in India. So simply I wrote there are formal sources of credit and informal sources of credit in formal type of credit, informal types of credit. In formal types of credit, I wrote about banks, I wrote about NBFCs, I talked about various government programs like Kisan Credit Card. And informal sources, you have the money lending system, which deals with agriculture credit. As far as the sources of credit, I also again wrote sources. One is government source, one is banking source, and other I also wrote about informal source of banking credit. And second part of the question is explain the initiatives taken by Indian government in order to improve access to agriculture. So one type of thing is, so every time the budget has been increasing the agriculture credit targets. So at latest it's around 2 lakh crores must be given to these things, and other is 18 lakh crores, 20 lakh crores, 18 lakh crores. So the agriculture credit targets. With respect to priority sector lending. So all agriculture or private sector banks and scheduled commercial banks and foreign banks must ensure that 18% of their credit is given to agriculture sector and 8% is given to microfinance institutions. Third one is NABARD. Fourth is with respect to Kisan credit cards. Fifth is with respect to interest subvention scheme. So all these are the steps taken by Government of India in order to ensure that there is increasing access to agriculture credit in India. The second part of the question is what is meant by sustainable agriculture. Discuss the sustainable agricultural practices, systems in India and provide suggestions to improve agriculture. See, this is a very long question. If you see, they asked about what is sustainable agriculture. Discuss sustainable agriculture practices. They can be traditional, they can be model agriculture practices, and systems in India, traditional systems, modern systems, and we need to provide suggestions to improve not sustainable agriculture but incomes from sustainable agriculture. Again, very specific part, very specific question. That's why this question was a great choice. So I have chosen this. On face of it, this question appears to be very easy, but as far as writing answer is concerned, this is very flexible and you can improve a lot on this. Next question is explain the scope and benefits of farm mechanization. Discuss implementation of farm mechanization schemes in Andhra Pradesh with special reference to community hiring center. Okay. And second question was explain the extent of marine fishery resources in Andhra Pradesh. Discuss the steps taken by Andhra Pradesh government in order to promote welfare and development of fishermen in Andhra Pradesh. See, this question is very easy. If I had answer for explain the extent of marine fishery resources in Andhra Pradesh. If we had information about marine fishery resources. You need to have the geographical extent, like how much fish is produced in aquifers, and what are the regions, okay, what are the targets that AP government is trying to improve its marine fisheries. So this is the extent of marine fishery resources in Andhra Pradesh. But in the examination hall, unfortunately, I haven't revised anything from marine fisheries. I didn't have any idea about what is the extent of GDP share, what is the extent of resources, shrimp production, various other fishery resources. So I refuse to write this answer, despite me knowing various amazing steps taken by Andhra Pradesh government in order to promote. You can various schemes. You have YSR Matsyakara Bharosa. Okay, you have diesel subsidy. You have farm input subsidy, and you also have YSR Matsyakara Bhima 10 lakh. Various other schemes that government is taking in order to improve fishermen. You can also write about fish landing centers, fishing harbors, sea exports. That would have been a hell of an answer if only I would have known the extent of marine fishery resources in India. So in exam hall, I chose to write the scope and benefits of farm mechanization. So what I simply wrote is scope of farm mechanization. Introduction, I wrote what is farm mechanization. Farm mechanization takes place in pre-harvesting, harvesting and post-harvesting. So I wrote about scope of this farm mechanization in this aspect. As far as benefits is concerned, as far as benefits in farm mechanization is concerned, I wrote productivity, soil fertility, precision agriculture. You can talk about water conservation. You can talk about reducing crop losses. You can talk great base for agro based industries. And then I wrote about discuss the implementation of farm mechanization schemes in Andhra Pradesh with special reference to community hiring centers. Then I spoke about what are the steps taken for farm mechanization. So I simply wrote Raitu Bharosa Kendras, and I wrote about YSR Yantra Seva scheme with respect to farm mechanization. And then I wrote about submission for agriculture. We get funds from Government of India to Government of AP for improving farm mechanization. And you can write about soil health labs in agriculture. Soil health labs, which refers to YSR Agri testing labs, all those things. And then with specific reference to, they asked with respect to custom hiring centers, you can just write in under YSR Yantra Seva scheme, community hiring centers are created which are attached to Raitu Bharosa Kendras, where farmers can get access to agricultural tools on basis of credit. As simple as that. So basing on that, we can just write. And also, I am also not satisfied with the way I have written in exam. So I could have more specifically I wrote with respect to Andhra Pradesh only Raitu Bharosa Kendra and YSR Farm Yantra Seva scheme. I have no other scheme in my mind. So I am also maximum the marks I can get maybe like 6 marks. If I have known very much schemes about AP, it might get pushed to 7 to 8 marks. But since I have only limited information, I am expecting only 6 marks around it. And again here, what is meant by strategic disinvestment? Explain the different methods of disinvestment adopted since DPAM and briefly discuss achievements and outcomes of this. This is one of the toughest questions I have seen in this paper. See, easiest part is what is strategic disinvestment. So we simply know that strategic disinvestment refers to 50% or more share is disinvested from public resources or from public corporations. You call it as strategic disinvestment. And third is, and they asked about disinvestment post Deepam, models with respect to Deepam. So this is one of the toughest part. I have no idea what are the different methods after post Deepam. And also, to write achievements and outcomes, you have to be very, very specific regarding disinvestment. So you need to know what have been achieved in terms of disinvestment targets. You need to know about which of the following corporations have been successfully dealing with this, and outcomes of this disinvestment, whether they have been positive outcome or a negative outcome, and way forward. So that's why I simply ignored this question. Then I started writing what is meant by Industrial Revolution 4.0, assess the likely impact of Industrial Revolution on Indian manufacturing sector, and provide brief note on PLI scheme. So again, I wrote when I had only 10 minutes time or some 8 minutes time for this question, because in the last half an hour I had to write a lot of questions. So I roughly took 8 to 9 minutes for writing this. So I just simply wrote what is Industrial Revolution 4.0. So I have no broad definition. I simply wrote that Industrial Revolution 4.0 refers to integration of industrial technology, biotechnology, and neural networks in order to promote Industrial Revolution 4.0. I simply wrote this thing. And assess the likely impact of Industrial Revolution in Indian manufacturing. So I simply wrote that productivity gets increased, ease of doing business, okay, and then rise of share of manufacturing, okay. Then I wrote about how India's manufacturing sector productivity, how it's going to increase, okay. And then transformation of more automation can happen in these things. Since they asked about the impact, that one, this was positive. As far as negative impact is concerned, more job losses can be taken place, okay. Instead of labor intensive industry, you can get very tech savvy industries. As a result, cost of implementation of Industrial Revolution 4.0 is also very burdensome on manufacturing sector. So these are the negative impacts. As far as PLI scheme is concerned, I just know basic things about PLI. So production linked incentive schemes refers to, so the government provides incentives basing on the production values. So for example, if one company achieves this kind of employment and such number of jobs and such number of production units, production value, then the government provides incentives basing on the production. I simply wrote PLI scheme is managed in various sectors like agro-based industry, defense sector, about agro-processing industry. So roughly around 12 sectors that PLI scheme is operating. See, again, this question also I am not satisfied. Mostly I can get marks for what is Industrial Revolution. I wrote few points about positive impact, and they mentioned about brief note. I am roughly expecting it must be for 2 marks. So what is Industrial Revolution can be 2 marks, and it can be for 6 marks or 5 marks, 2.5 or 2.5. So mostly if I get 5 marks here, it will be great. And then again, with respect to micro, small, medium enterprise in Andhra Pradesh, discuss the importance of MSMEs in Andhra Pradesh economy. So I just wrote about a lot of facts, how about 45%, 50% of employment, industrial output, how it is improving, and how it is providing jobs to at least 1 crore, at least 10 lakh jobs or in MSMEs, and all those points, how it's going to transform AP agrarian economy into industrial economy. And as far as the second part is scope and implementation of Dr. YSR Navodayam scheme, I made one of my biggest blunders in this exam is, for restart program I wrote YSR Navodayam. For Navodayam I wrote restart. Mostly I will get max 3 marks for it if I am lucky, because if I am lucky the examiner might give little bit consideration, give at least 1 mark for writing exact points regarding Navodaya and restart, but still it's a touch and go question for me. Again here, why I didn't choose explain the development program of Vizag Chennai Industrial Development Corridor program and write a note on socio-economic. See, this question is not regarding Vizag Chennai Industrial Corridor. This question is regarding Vizag Chennai Industrial Corridor Development Program. In Vizag Chennai Industrial Development Program, there are a lot of socio-economic activities that are developed. A lot of developmental activities are happening in villages in terms of industries and all those things. This is a very specific question. If we write just few industrial industrial corridor development program, it's not going to fetch us mark. The question is not about Vizag Chennai Industrial Corridor, but rather it is about development program. So if you open economic survey, there is a almost 1 pager regarding this development program. I am not speaking about Vizag Chennai Industrial Corridor, but Vizag Chennai Industrial Corridor program. So there is a clear 1 pager where they have spoken about socio-economic impact. That's why I had no choice but to write this one. Second thing is, if you see, explain the impact of digital public infrastructure on the socio-economic development in India and discuss the steps taken by to accelerate digital infrastructure and reduce digital. See, this is again a huge question. You need to talk about impact. First, you need to speak about digital infra. After speaking digital infra, you have to know about socio-economic impact, and then you have to write about steps taken by the accelerate, and then reduce how it's reducing digital divide in India. So it's a very long question. So I choose to ignore this one, and rather I started writing about what is smart city. What is smart city? Smart city, I just wrote that a city which is governed by urban smart highly state of the art technology and smart governance and infrastructure. I just wrote, and then I just wrote India is developing 100 smart city program, 100 smart cities under its smart city program. Then immediately I wrote what is the role of smart city in economic development. Just put the heading role of smart cities in economic development, just points. 1 point might be, for example, you can speak about economic development. For example, it can create more jobs, it can create FDI, it can attract FDIs. Okay, it can attract in this smart city achieve, it can attract FDIs, it can attract smart infrastructure, lot of investment. Okay, and also it plays a key role in urbanization. So with all these things, smart cities play a crucial role in economic development. And the other point is with respect to challenges faced by smart cities under smart cities mission. Then you have to write challenges, you have to write urban governance, you have to write about smart infrastructure, you have to write about financing smart cities, and you have to write about lack of inconsistency between the urban local bodies and the smart cities mission, special purpose vehicle SPV. So these are the challenges faced by the financing in smart cities, and also you have to write about what are the solutions to overcome these challenges. So you can talk about green bonds. Okay, you can talk about external commercial borrowings, you can talk about FDIs, you can talk about various PPP projects, you can talk about privatization of various aspects of infrastructure. You can speak about all these things in terms of solutions to overcome these challenges. And other question is explain the policy framework for development of civil aviation in Andhra Pradesh and discuss the development of greenfield airport projects in Andhra Pradesh. Okay, see again this is a very specific question, because I don't know anything about push strategy of government of Andhra Pradesh and export policy promotion, so I haven't attempted discussion. So what I wrote is, see, and just write about what is civil aviation policy. Civil aviation policy speak about construction of greenfield airports, brownfield airports, viability gap funding, regional connectivity increase, development of six airports under development, various other aspects. Then I wrote about what I discussed the development of greenfield airport projects in India. Again, this was a very bad attempt. Mostly I am expecting 3 marks. I had very much stuff regarding development of greenfield airports. I only wrote Donakonda Airport, Dagadarthi, Orokal, and all those things. And I had no clear idea. I just spoke about what about land acquisition. I spoke about labor, environment protection, EIA, environmental impact assessment, environmental clearances, and financing. I wrote about only those things. I clearly don't know how many marks I'm going to get. Similarly, as far as 13th question is concerned, I wrote explain the effects of prevailing growth, prevailing low global growth, prevailing low global growth and high inflation. So simply wrote out what are the effects, what will be the effects. So I wrote about GDP impact will be there. Okay, agriculture sector, industrial sector, service sector. We can speak about all these aspects in this question, and also discuss the methods to control inflation. And as far as discuss the methods to control inflation is concerned, you can simply write about monetary policy, fiscal policy measures. Okay, so in order to speak about various monetary policy tools that Reserve Bank uses, and as far as fiscal policy, you can speak about debt management policy, tax policies, okay, in order to control inflation. And as far as inflation targeting is concerned, inflation targeting is set by monetary policy committee, where a band like 2 to 6% inflation band is created, where if it goes beyond 6%, if it comes beyond 2%, then government tries to take various policy measures in order to target the inflation through its monetary policy. Similarly, with respect to 14th A, I chose to write explain the reasons for higher public debt in India and discuss the scope of public debt sustainability in India. See, as far as public debt in India is concerned, what you can choose is what is public debt. Okay, so whenever public debt refers to the amount of borrowing by the government to meet its expenditure and revenue mismatch. So that is public debt. You can write the example. Public debt in India is around 87%, okay, including state government debt. So you can just simply write that. And what are the reasons for high public debt? You can talk about COVID crisis. You can speak about high import bills. You can speak about capital investment. You can speak about low growth. Okay, you can speak about how state government borrowings. You can speak about various other things why there is higher public debt in India, and also discuss the scope of public debt sustainability in India. See, for public debt sustainability refers to sustainable management of public debt in order to avoid inflation and other various things. So what you can focus on: fiscal policy, monetary policy in management of fiscal public debt. And you can speak about how to FRBMA Act, which speak about fiscal consolidation, public debt consolidation. And you can speak about how external commercial borrowings can be limited. You can speak about encasing panel recommendation. We can also write about expenditure commission. We can also write about public debt management agency, why RBI and fiscal policy must be in congruency. And sometimes we can also speak about there needs to be a separation between RBI to only function as monetary policy and take RBI's role, or let public debt be managed independent of RBI. So this is one way of answering this. Second is explain the impact of rainbow revolution in India and discuss the scope of industrial transformation in Indian agriculture. Again, rainbow revolution refers to its integration of all kinds of agricultural revolution that happen in India. For example, you can have green revolution, white revolution, pink revolution, red revolution, golden revolution, and all those things in terms of rainbow revolution. And as far as impact is concerned, always talk about impact in terms of production, in terms of productivity, in terms of nutrition, in terms of food security, in terms of high exports. As far as negative impacts is concerned, we can speak about high yield varieties, more chemicals, harmful chemicals have been increased, and also regional disparities between various economic zones, various states in India, and discuss the scope for industrial transformation in Indian agriculture. Industrial transformation in Indian agriculture. So simply we can talk about pre-harvesting, post-harvesting, one aspect. We can talk about farm mechanizations. We can talk about agro-based industries and various other things where there is a huge scope for industrial transformation in Indian agricultural sector, where you can speak about precision farming, you can speak about agro-based industries, high yield variety of seeds, biotechnology. In all such aspects, you can write about industrial transformation. So overall, this paper shall appear pretty much easy for those people who have written exam outside the exam pressure. When you are comfortably sitting in your home and trying to write or trying to see that this paper is very easy because I know this point, but in order to complete this 15 questions within the stipulated time framework, in terms of time pressure, in terms of overall scheme of things, this paper is not an easy one. Okay, you need to write a lot of points, you need to have a lot of understanding and integrating approach for solving this. Those papers, those who are saying that this paper is very easy, it's fine, it's up to them to how to see. But overall, in section 1, if we see like 1, 2, okay, first 5 questions are pretty much easy, as far as these conceptual things are concerned. As far as section 2, again this 6A is easy, and this is also easy. Okay, see, overall, like out of 15, okay, 10 questions we can answer comfortably. Due to time pressure, 2 questions might get impacted. Otherwise, 10 to 11 questions on any average student can be solving it, who have very good conceptual clarity. It's not just about marking up. We need to connect various aspects in the exam pressure. That is one thing. And due to time pressure, things can become very difficult in terms of choosing questions, in terms of writing answers. So overall, 10 to 11 questions are doable, and rest of the questions need specific knowledge in writing the answers. Thank you.